Hi,
Hi.
everybody. Good morning. Welcome to Speakeasy.
Yeah, it feels like it's going to be one of those Sundays again at SpeakEasy where we rip the Band-Aid off the scab and see what's there to heal. And that's what we do, and that's what we do well. So I'm grateful that we're all here. I actually have a guest reader today. My sister Barbara is going to come and read a piece that she wrote, and we do have a stand-in for you, which is Mari.
A reflection from Barbara Shadell, and she is supporting those who need their voice to be heard. And it goes like this. Given the great gift of time during this quarantine, I was able to heed a calling I have been feeling for quite some time. This was to create a group of diverse women in which we would listen, share, and learn about what is racism in our country. It is named Diversity, Not Adversity, DNA. Their stories came pouring forth, stories from my community, and I cannot breathe. In a short amount of time, I started cleaning the lens of which I have viewed my world, and in particular, my country. Reading articles, books such as Just Mercy and Me and White Supremacy, watching TED Talks, and most importantly, listening to the truth of experiences from people in our group. They all matched up. The stories all matched up, and I cannot breathe. It seemed within days of our first meeting, we were met head on with Ahmaud Arbery's lynching. The public was outraged, many still are. But the soothing of our whiteness came in the form of videos showing Ahmaud walking into a house under construction. Ah, look, he is not so innocent. He probably did other things, and those men were right to follow him and then kill him when he appeared he was resisting. The deliberate attempts to paint Ahmaud as a hoodlum emerged, just like I heard in our group, just like I read, and I cannot breathe. Then the shooting of Breonna Taylor, an essential worker. The police burst into her apartment to serve a search warrant. The suspect in the case had already been arrested. Breonna's boyfriend, Kenneth Walker, fired a shot thinking his home was being invaded after asking several times who was there. He hit the officer in the leg. Breonna Taylor was shot multiple times and died in her hallway. She was 26. There have been several changes in the reports from the police. I know we are asked to wait until we have all the information. Now, having read so much of our history with cases like these, with cover-ups and radical prejudices, I think of my Black and brown brothers and sisters, hearing these words again and again and wondering if the truth will prevail, and I cannot breathe. And quickly, on the heels of this is the death of George Floyd. These last two cases involve the power given to the police. I think this is an area in which having white privilege makes it so hard to think that perhaps there is an abuse of power. But there is. Not all, not many, but there is. The stories match up with the stories told in our group again. They match up with Just Mercy, white fragility, and data from so much research, articles, so many resources of information, and I cannot breathe. Finally, the bird watcher, that woman yelling that an African-American man was threatening her and her dog was almost textbook use of white privilege. And the responses I have seen on Twitter. Why would he carry dog treats? Why did he film her? Not the very thing we should focus on. Why did she make up that threat? Why would she have done it if the bird watcher was a white girl who asked her to leash her dog? If he hadn't filmed it, all previous events point to the fact that he would have been arrested, and I cannot breathe. Take just one of these stories and make all the excuses you want, but collectively, over 4 centuries, patterns will become crystal clear. The protests across our country are a result of this oppression, passed on from one generation to the next. I wonder how I would react. How would my anger spill over? I have asked a few white people, would you be willing to change skin color with a person of color? The answer is a resounding no. That says it all. I am breathing. I am taking a breath into a deeper conversation. Breathing in love, exhaling fear and pain and anger. I am taking a breath in love. Breathe.
Thank you, Mari.
You're welcome.
So that's where we're at this morning. This morning I was reminded of this cross that I have hanging in my office. And it's this huge cross that I actually purchased for my sister Maggie, because my sister Maggie, well, I should explain, the cross is made out of wood from wine barrels. And my sister Maggie loves wine and Jesus in equal measure. And I never really liked the symbol of the cross. And I didn't see it without seeing Jesus hanging from it. And I tried as I might, it never sat well with me. And as a kid, I would ask my mom, like, why is Jesus hanging on the cross? Didn't they take him down? Seeing him hang like that gave me the feeling that I got when I looked at animal parts in the butcher store, and it left me feeling disturbed and confused. And I would ask when I saw those animals in the butcher store, why do we eat animals? Why are dogs pets, and why are cows burgers? I was a kid with too many questions, but I would ask her, like, how do we know the difference? And then who gets to decide what the difference is? And these were the type of questions that I somehow along the way stopped questioning, because there's no rational answer for them. We get domesticated into accepting hierarchies and bizarre rituals, and you just go along to get along, and you trust that everyone's doing it, so it must be okay. But as adults, we get to choose again, to rename symbols. And so I look at that cross, and I'm reminded of my own interpretation, which is that I'm connected with my divine, that I'm beholden to my brother, all of my brothers. And if I'm connected to all of my brothers, it makes sense that right now I should feel pain and anger and frustration at this hour, because our communities are writhing in pain right now. Yesterday, my family prayed for George Floyd's family. My son Ryan started crying, and he got all choked up, like I'm getting choked up, and he rubbed his eyes and he said, I don't know why I'm crying. He was embarrassed by his emotion, and I said to him, I'd be more concerned if you weren't crying. The veil is thin. Your pain is my pain is your pain. Whatever you do to the least of my brothers, that you do unto me. It's no longer words that we recite on Sunday morning. We are being given the experience of not just seeing the knee on the neck, but getting the wind knocked out of us. That's what we're feeling. There's a Buddhist bodhisattva named Kuan Yin who works on her spirituality to the point where she is a step from nirvana. She's a step from enlightenment. And she's so worthy of this next step. But in the midst of taking this step, she hears all this crying, and she turns back and she sees that the world is in pain. And she decides to step backwards instead of forward, because she said, until I help relinquish the suffering from the world, I'm not moving forward. And I think that we're all at that point. We can't step forward until we step together. I thought I would be making a talk today about, our vision. That was my plan. I wanted to tell you about the new classes in our summer program. I wanted to invite you, to step into your own vision of the future, to step forward, But I kept hearing the words, tread lightly, tread lightly. I didn't know what these words, tread lightly, had to do with stepping forward until the news started to unfold with the murder of George Floyd. And I knew Spirit was trying to impress upon me that this is a tough and tender topic that we are going to be asked to address, and to tread lightly with it. And to tread lightly means to be gentle, to navigate with extra, extra grace, because everything is coming up for healing, and healing is messy. But even if it's messy, it's a good thing to heal. It's good to know that it's actually a part of the healing. And in the sea of bad news, a good thing can feel really good. So for the past couple of months, we've been talking about this shift in consciousness that's happening. Our world is waking up, and As it does, the old broken down stories and ways of being will no longer be acceptable. We need to heal before we move forward. Racism and inequities have gone unchecked for centuries, as my sister said, and as we've all known, and they're no longer acceptable to the current consciousness. And like an agitated horse, we're getting bucked. And this hatred and ignorance that once seemed unacceptable is now absolutely intolerable. Absolutely intolerable. People are done waiting for someone else to make it right. People are done playing nice. And this is not a bad thing. We should be upset. We should feel stymied. This is not someone else's son. This is not someone else's problem. We belong to each other. We know we can't look the other way. We know we're responsible for our world. We can be better allies for each other. The brown, the black, the trans, the women, the LGBTQ, all of us. All of those who have been marginalized. All the cows that go to slaughter while the dogs run free. Who decides this? And why have I accepted it? So everything is being brought to light, either through the eye of a camera or the searching of our soul. And it's better to do the work consciously than to ignore the work. Ignorance stems from the act of ignoring issues that need to be addressed. And even if you don't know how to address them, you get on to willingness. You go to God. You become willing to be shown how to tread lightly, how to step into light and to bring it to light. All that's been lurking in the corners of our consciousness, all the racism, all the misogynism, all the prejudices, all the unspeakable need to be heard and seen. When we consistently ignore the truth, ignorance becomes the norm. When we consistently ignore the truth, ignore the call for love, riots break out. The universal wound is crying out, I need you to see me, I need you to hear me, I need you to value me. This is an external demonstration of an internal issue. This is where we're at, and this is where we're going to do the work. This is not up for negotiation, but we are at choice as to how we do the work. Last week I was telling you, this is a spiritual car wash or a spiritual enema, and it looks like we've chosen an enema because shit is flying, and that is okay. That is more than okay. I get that, and I can get with that. When my stepmother died, my sister took me into the garage with some of her china. And they said, here, toss one of these at the wall. You'll feel a little bit better. It didn't really make sense to me to smash things against the wall. I didn't really understand it, but I didn't need to understand it. I only needed to witness the exhale of pain without judgment, not to fear the rage that was boiling up and needed to get out. Fear and rage is boiling from the belly of our communities and our consciousness. And no matter how many plates need to be smashed or buildings need to be burned, they will never, ever, ever equate the value of one man's life. And that's the classroom that we're in right now. That we get to see, what do we value? Do we value a clean, tidy world where murder is acceptable? This show of protest is an exhale that George Floyd never got to take. That George Floyd will never get to take. The breath that will carry the words to his daughters has been silenced. That's right up in our faces, a public lynching played out for all of us to witness so that we could see it, so that we could not deny it, so that we could peer into the blank face of merciless racism that has been running rampant and unchecked. It's not in our faces to shock us, although it is absolutely shocking. It's in our faces to shake us and awaken us to a pandemic that has been taking more lives than all the pandemics combined. Racism. But this is good. This is the first step to seeing it, is the first step to healing it. I couldn't harness my own addiction until I was ready to see the damage that it was having in my life. I came to believe that my life had become unmanageable. I had to take that step. I had been in the program of Alcoholics Anonymous since the time I was 18 years old, but I never took the step of identifying my issue until I was 33 years old. I'm an alcoholic. Those were the words I had to say. I had to name the beast that I was wrestling with. Nothing is healed unless it is seen and heard and called by name. And the name is racism, racism, racism. We need to be brave enough to look at it, to see it, to call it by name. This is the disease that lives in all of us. And how can it not? We've been raised in a system that has valued white skin over black skin, a society that has feared black men. I am not colorblind. I see color. I've been taught the value of the shading system. I have been blind to my own white privileges or unwilling to look at them. You know, I don't know about you, but I was in Los Angeles for the riots. I watched Rodney King be brutally attacked. I thought, this is the most horrific, this is the most terrifying thing I have ever seen. But worse than that is that I was wrong. It wasn't the worst and terrifying thing I'd ever seen. 30 years later, this terrifying thing has become commonplace. That's the most terrifying thing. And let me be clear, it's not that we become more prejudiced, but that the unflinching honesty of the cameras that are available for Rodney King are now helping us to see thousands of inequities that are out there. Those murders are only the pinnacle of the problem. The real problem runs deeper. We abolished slavery, but did we? Black Americans continue to be marginalized through enforced segregation. And I look around our community and I see white faces, and I look around our neighborhood and I see white faces, and I look around our schools and I see all white. And even at Voice Box, when I actively try and pull diversity on the stage, the audience still remains pretty white. And I've gone numb to this self-imposed segregation that we live in, but we do live in it. And it's time for us to really look at that. So here's what I have to say. It's time to wake up. It's time to stay woke. Don't go back to sleep. This new vision is where we see all things as equal. This has been the call to action from A Course in Miracles from day one. It says, to make this year different, make everything the same. We will never get to our point of brilliance if we continue to deny the brilliance that lives in all things and all people. Until we actively assist that brilliance to being released and revered in all people and all things. Because we are in this together, all interconnected, and no one wakes up alone. We go together or not at all. So how are we going to not only ensure that everyone gets on the bus, but that everyone has equal access to every seat on the bus? How are we going to do that? This past week in A Course in Miracles, the review was, my mind holds only what I think with God. And it reviewed, when I'm healed, I'm not healed alone. And heaven is a decision that I must make. So I'm making that decision. We are going to host our own chapter of DNA at SpeakEasy. Diversity, not adversity. Where we gather a diverse group of people to listen and share and learn about the systematic racism in our country so we can heal it. To help us to clean the lens that we've been viewing the world through, as my sister said. This is not a Sunday sermon. This is a shift in lifestyle. We are actively working together to be better allies. We have robbed the breath and the brilliance of the Black community, and we are each responsible for making a living amends. And we can do that together. That's what a spiritual community looks like. That's how we reach our potential. We cannot go to God until we get right with our brother. And we're going to get right with our brother. And when we get right with our brother, we get right with ourselves. So that's the vision. And that's the word.
Amen.
Amen.
Thank you, Thank you, Maureen.
It's a Bob Dylan song. Mama, take this badge off of me, 'cause I can't use it anymore. It's getting dark, too dark to see, and I feel like I'm knocking on heaven's door. Knock, knock, knocking on heaven's door. Knock, knock, knocking on heaven's door. Knock, knock, knocking on heaven's door. I will put my guns in the ground, 'cause I can't shoot them anymore. A long black cloud is coming down. I feel like I'm knocking on heaven's door. Knock, knock, 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 knocking on heaven's door.
Thank you. So Kathy's going to sing another song after we do the, Pam's going to give us a financial opportunity to share. And I hope you stick around for after the last song for our conversation, because I'm sure people have a lot of resources to share with us. So I'm going to pass it to you, Pam.
Okay, first of all, I want to thank you for joining us as you've been doing, and it's just a pleasure to have you all in our community. If Maureen's message today touched your heart, and you're in a position to give, the information to do that is in the chat box. And also, Mari has found a way, thanks to Barbara, to put in the bottom of the email that you receive each week a link that you can click on to hopefully make it easier for you. Also, my name and number is at the bottom of that email. And so if you have any problems with the link or technology, please feel free to reach me. And if you're not receiving our email, please sign up at SpeakEasy You can hit the contact tab that's at the top right of the page. And if you send us your email address, that makes it easy for us to remind you and for you to give if you can. So I thank you very much.
Thank you, Pam. And I just want to say, like, you know, you might not be fed by my message. You might be fed by Kathy Richardson's music. You might be fed by the conversation. So this isn't the Mo Show. I just want to step back a little bit there and invite us all to know that we're in a spiritual community. You invest in your spiritual community if you want to continue to have what you deem to be valuable. That's it. So I'm going to pass it to Mari for any announcements.
Definitely want to invite everybody to go to SpeakEasySpiritualCommunity.com. Our website will be updated within this week, and it'll have more information. We are going to be offering classes throughout the summer to really nourish your spirit and go into that spiritual growth. We really want to support our community in that way. And now more than anything, I feel like it's so appropriate in order to change our world. Prayer is the best thing to make that change. And especially for everyone who was there during the V3 class, we have the affirmative prayer coming up starting June 3rd. And through affirmative prayer I feel like it has changed my life, and you can really move into changing the world. So I want you to consider that, and stay tuned in our website to check out the classes to come. And I pass.
Hi, everybody. I'm back, and we're back. Just going to pull up these lyrics just in case I forget them. It's another brilliant song by the brilliant Bob Dylan. They say everything can be replaced. They say every distance is not near. So I remember every face of every man who put me here. Oh, I see my light come shining from the west down to the east. Any day now, I shall be released. They say every man needs protection. They say that every man must fall. And I swear I see my reflection somewhere beyond these walls. Oh, I see my light come shining from the west down to the east. Any day now, I shall be released. Yonder stands a man in this lonely crowd, a man who swears he's not to blame.